Welcome to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. I'm Melissa Joy, a certified financial planner and the founder of Pearl Planning. My goal is to help you streamline and organize your finances, navigate big money decisions with confidence, and be strategic in order to grow your wealth. As a woman, you work hard for your money, and I'm here to help you make the most of it. Now, let's get into the show. Are you integrating your hair budget into your overall financial budget? Are you making the right choices when it comes to personal care decisions? And are you comfortable talking about the money that involves? We're going to cover all of that and more today with Jessica Hawkins, who is a lead stylist as well as trainer and just leader in general at HJem Beauty in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And she also happens to be the person I trust with my hair care. So Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. We've been talking about this during my appointments for probably the last 3 or 4 months. But I really think that part of the value of the Women's Money Wisdom podcast is to normalize conversations about money in all aspects of life. And certainly, at least for me, my hair care is an important and significant part of kind of my personal care and personal budget. And so I thought we could have that discussion from client to professional about what everybody should be considering when it comes to their hair and maybe some tips and trends and things like that.
Yeah. That's something that I feel like is becoming more of an ease of conversation in the salon, especially with you. I mean, you're a different social person because you're the one telling me, Jess, you need to raise your prices.
Oh, yeah. We have had that discussion
you're
before.
You're coaching me too. So, I mean, it's a forever learning game, and I'm sure in every industry. So,
well, you're very in demand. One of the things I have to do is schedule a couple sessions out. And, certainly while I would like to keep my hair budget down, I see you as you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. And so, navigating that supply and demand and keeping track of costs over time and making sure that they're keeping up with inflation is really important. I see that with a lot of my business owners. But then on the other side, for my clients who are spending money on personal care, you've got to make sure that what you're spending fits with what you can afford, right? So
for sure. And that's something that's ever fluid in our industry, especially since COVID. A lot of things have been flipped, turned upside down, and now we're restarting again. So it's, definitely.
Yeah. And I talked to some friends or clients who put in a budget line of one haircut a year. And I'm like, because I've had gray hair since I was very young. So you're a color specialist, and I've never gone for once a year appointments just because maintaining color takes more time, and I don't do it myself. I hear in the salon people kind of consulting, whether it's with kids in college who are like, hey, what you're asking for is going to cost about $300 and be about 3 or 4 hours or something like that. Is that okay? It's like, yeah, my mom knows, or whatever, to all the way to, just talking upfront about what's going on. How do you guys train your team to kind of address that part of the conversation? How do you feel about it?
So I think it took a while to get comfortable with that conversation. I won't lie about it. I feel like in general, we're supposed to talk pretty things and reality TV and restaurants and makeup and stuff. But then when we're okay, yes, exactly. It's a fun experience, but it is some people are there for the fun glam moment, and some people are it is a beauty regimen for them and it's a routine for them, and they want to be able to come every 4 to 6 weeks. And then we have people that want to come 8 to 12 weeks, or you said, there's the few that are once a year. So I think we've just integrated in our consultations, what is your priority? Do you, for example, never want to see gray hair? Then okay, this is what the maintenance looks like, and you'll probably have to come every 4 weeks, and it will cost this much each time. Is that something that you're game for? And if they're no, that's too much, that doesn't fit in my budget, then we move into different things of okay, well, are you okay with blending your gray as opposed to covering your gray? There are options. It's not I have a lot of clients, especially brunettes, that are you'll tell me when I have to color my hair, right? You'll tell me, right? And you don't ever have to jump into that maintenance if you don't want to. There are options because we are very well trained in being creative and challenging those like things that people are dealing with as they age or maybe not age. I started grading when I was like 25, so could happen to anybody.
Totally. I think I was 14. So when
Yeah,
I had those first strands, um,
14.
I know, wild. That's another episode,
Enough
right?
amount.
But I love that. So it's not just about the service you're receiving that day. You also need to say, and if you're not getting that consultation, you should ask, like, okay, what will this entail if my hair gets bleached and turned pink, what does that look like in order to maintain, or whatever it is?
Right.
That's really interesting. And having that conversation up front versus figuring it out later is really important.
Yeah. And that's where even some clients now jump into our DMs on Instagram and ask us these questions ahead of time too. And I firm believer that like a real conversation with somebody, whether it's going to be on the phone or like Zoom or an in-person consultation, like we offer that variety for people to have the space to answer and ask these questions, because sometimes I'll get like a DM from somebody that'll just be straight up like, what do you charge? And I'm like, that is not specific. You know what I mean? Like,
I need a little more to go on.
Yes, but because a color is so custom now, we really can break it down so it shouldn't be a thing that you have to sit for 2 hours in your appointment just feeling uncomfortable with. Like if you want to know ahead of time, like you're ordering a coffee somewhere and I want to add a pump of this and I want to add a different kind of milk for this, like it's the same thing with hair. Do you also want a conditioning treatment? Do you also want a haircut? Or are you stressing about how much it's going to cost the whole time so then you don't get either because you never ask? But like up front, those are all conversations that we in education are even trying to train our staff to be able to like ask without making the clients feel uncomfortable too.
I love that. And I think that's great, like reminders for our audience of, in all aspects of life, it's okay to bring things up. If you get uncomfortable, like vibes back, then that's certainly something to take in, because I don't think there's an expectation anywhere that you should just like blindly have your credit card ready to swipe
Right.
regardless of the cost, but you also have an obligation to talk about it up front.
Okay.
So since you're a color specialist, can you tell me like what is kind of the high end of, like, what brings the service really, it like doubles or triples the price versus what's a way to be a little more economical in the way you kind of set up or request services when it comes to color?
Like it's like when I said the pandemic changed a lot of things, I think it moved everybody into what we're calling a lived in color. Like
Okay.
not everybody wants to have like, they're not as focused on their part anymore. Let's just say that. So we move into bigger services that are like 2 times a year, maybe 3 times a year. But that's where like the cost effective thing I think comes into play. Are you going to spend like around $400 twice a year, or are you going to spend $150 every 4 weeks? So it just gets into like what you're comfortable and what you feel like and what you look like, and if you're okay with like learning to live not with such high maintenance color. So it's, I think, coming more often, especially like I do blondes, right? So like the majority blondes, I do blondes, and I am someone that does that because I have been so focused on my part in my hairline for like my whole life. So I feel like I take one to know one sometimes. Those appointments, if you want to be a blonde, it's never going to be cheap. Let me just say it like that. But that doesn't mean that you have to be a brunette either. There are ways to create a more like lived in blonde that we're calling, or you can do, I have clients that maybe their schedule changes because of a new job, or because they just had a baby, or because they moved 2 hours away and they can't budget the time anymore. So we transition into like a more natural looking blonde that doesn't cost as much as like getting 200 foils in your hair. You're getting like 100 foils in your hair. So it can be one of those things. I feel like with moms, I like kind of feel such an honor with when they're like, I still really want to do this, but help me. And I'm like, yes, girl, I got you. Like there are ways for us to like move into that world. And I think that's the benefit of like kind of sticking with a person for a while, especially in big transitions like that, because you get to know what areas are really important to people and how to take care of them better. So there's value in that, I think.
Well, and I've had a transition myself, certainly for the first, when I was younger, it was all about affordability. Like how,
Yeah.
Like I would go to the beauty school to get work done. I would trade off the amount of time I needed to sit in the chair versus the cost of the service because it was discounted because it was well-trained students that were providing it. And then, I kind of sought more moderate costs, but still could afford a higher level service. And today, just based on circumstances, time is my most scarce commodity. And so for me, it's more important to know that those times are scheduled. It has to be, like end of the day. I can't afford a middle of the day appointment in some cases. And so things have shifted in terms of my level of priority. And I understand there's trade-offs. If the time is my most important consideration, then I may need to pay more to get things done in the way that I want them to get done, or there may not be time for the haircut every time, or things like that. So I think understanding what your priorities are can be really critical.
Yeah, huge.
Is it taboo nowadays? Like if you needed to save money and you're like, okay, I can commit to the twice a year where we really like level set the situation. Is it taboo for somebody to do home application of color in the interim, or is that something that you could set up with like the right, kind of color mix for them in between or things like that?
I will say that's depending who you talk to, it could be taboo, but
editorial opinion, right?
Yes,
tell us what you really think, Jessica. You don't need
what
to be...
I really think is it's a lot to ask people to come in that regularly for such a long service. And I never want anybody to feel poorly about how they look. So they have, like I said, the pandemic brought in these new kits. This company, during the pandemic when none of us were working, they were like, we will give stylists a commission if you sell these root touch-up kits. So you're supporting your stylist while they're not working, but also they're choosing like what color is for you. And they're simple little kits that just cover the necessities. You're, of course, not going to get every single gray hair on your head. You're not going to have enough color to mix like everything. But the stuff that makes you feel bad about it is going to be like right on top and right around your face when you pull your hair up. So they sell like little kits that can help maintain that in the meantime. I do have no problem with these. Like these have been chemically formulated for us to work with when we need to like bust through that color at your next appointment, or chemically like work with another chemical that we don't have in the salon. I think the chemical you use on your hair is very important. So if you decide to jump into that, or you're just honest with your stylist that, hey, I need to start doing this in between, can you help me shop? Like most of us care about you and we're going to help you do that. We're just going to say like, never highlight your hair at home. That's like kind of where a limit and line is drawn, because nobody wants orange fruits, and that's just going to happen at home, or break your hair off, something like that.
Is there a material difference between what you would custom provide versus what you'd find in the aisle at Meijer?
Yeah, the chemicals you find at Meijer are meant to fit any head of hair. No head of hair is the same. So like the results could range. So usually if I'm helping someone purchase something, it's going to be from like a beauty supply chain that either I help them order, or I can send them to another, like even like Sally's sometimes can have some like easy to use kind of stuff. In general, no Walmart, no Meijer, no CVS, but like Ulta has some stuff. And like I said, Sally's has some stuff, places that have reputable hair lines and brands. So
good to know. I think I'm hearing like not every professional would welcome that conversation, but some are open to it.
Yeah. Some are artists and they want to hang on to their color formulas. You know what I mean? And it depends. Each client would be different, but I do think that there are cases where helping to maintain at home like comes to a big help in cost to your client, and they love you for taking care of them. And that's, if I can offer that, then I want to. So
I love that. So could we talk about like and I would say that relates to financial planning and investment management. Like there's certain things I'd be very comfortable kind of giving a recipe to people and saying, here's how you should invest. There's other things when it comes to like taxable withdrawal decisions, or, where there's bigger tax consequences. I'm like, you can absolutely try it yourself, but it may be better handled by a professional. And I think the reality for a good person is like just being upfront and not defensive as a professional about like, hey, here's the trade-offs and considerations. Here's why some people may not like it. Here's where I'm coming from. ethically
And
as a
here's where I
professional.
can't promise a result. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I can say like, here is something
And
I
here's
don't
what
use,
makes
but
me
it's
nervous.
comfortable. Yes. Just being honest about it.
Yeah.
Like where I say, do not try to do blonde at home. I will flatline say that. But there are options.
I got it. Yeah, well received. You know, I'm not, I will still be loyally going to my appointments, but could we talk about the economics of like exactly um how you're getting paid as just you being a stylist, as well as, you know, there's also like you picking out suggested product in the salon. So to start, many stylists are self-employed, correct?
Yeah.
They're often associated with the salon, using the brand in many cases, although some cases they're like their own little, you know, like uh, studio within a bigger, you know, kind of rental space.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, this is a question we even get a lot behind the chair. Like, oh, like how does this work for you? There's a handful of commission stylists, and there's a handful of people that booth rent, and then there's a handful that like rent their own studios now. So I feel like there's all different kinds of salon environments that could fit to your clientele, but it does come with its own challenges of paying taxes and all of that kind of stuff that we weren't taught in beauty school, by the way. So if you want to go teach at beauty school, you could probably help a lot of professionals.
Makes sense, right? You've got to
Yeah.
figure out your own retirement plan, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But in
Mm-hmm.
essence, many of the people, one of my friends, as I was prepping for this episode, she's like, okay, there used to be this rule that if you wouldn't tip the owner, so if you went to a diner and you knew the owner was the one serving you, it was like, don't tip them. But I think that's kind of out the window because almost everybody's kind of working for themselves.
Yeah.
But what's from your side of the aisle? What's the train of thought? Everybody gets tipped, right? Or should.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's been pretty standard in our business that a percentage is tipped on it. We've even had to come up with all different, it used to just be you throw them some cash, but now we all have Venmo accounts attached to our businesses too. And we have certain applications at the salon that people can like scan their card if they don't have Venmo. Like there's a separate transaction for tips for anybody that would like to offer one. And I think most of us sit in a place, at least at my place, where we're a commission salon. We're all used to getting tipped, but it's never expected, but always appreciated.
Understood. You know, like everybody has their own philosophy on tipping, but if it were kind of industry standard, is it kind of like a 20% or 15 to 25? Is that like kind of the range of, I won't say
Average,
expectation, but average?
yeah. I feel like average is around 20%, give or take.
And that would be on the services, not the services plus product.
Correct.
Okay. And then
Which is also something you can clarify when you're cashing out somewhere. You can ask somebody that.
Right. I know it. When I've purchased product at your salon, they've often said the services were this, and then, you know, here's the total. So then also, is there financial consideration if you know, set people up with a lot, you know, like they purchase shampoo and conditioner or whatever it is? Is that also often something where the stylist would receive a percentage of compensation or some sort of commission for that?
Usually there is. If you're attached to a commission-based salon, there's usually some sort of kickback for you. Um, it's not usually that big, but it is more of a better contribution to the small business that you're attending because we work with product lines that help support our training. So anything that our salon earns based on those kinds of things goes right back into like building our skill set. So they set us up with, you know, in salon education, traveling education, all of that kind of stuff so that we can keep our knowledge at the top.
And of course, they're using their product, so that builds loyalty for.
Yes, for sure.
What is the primary difference between what you might buy at the salon in terms of hair product versus like the pharmacy or CVS?
It's an interesting shift right now because I am also, like, I call myself a product junkie, so I buy stuff everywhere. There's always new stuff to try, right? But usually from like reputable things where I know what ingredients to look for, where not everybody does, right? So I'm not saying that there's like no other place to shop in the salon. Like the convenience of clicking online and being adding to your cart, I think is a huge, huge convenience for people. And I personally would love to integrate that into my business, but you know, we'll learn. There are the risk, I feel like the biggest one we've seen is like Meijer, Walmart, like the bigger chains and Amazon sometimes. They will buy out businesses that have sold, take on all of their product, and then sometimes often they're diluted. So we've run into like, oh, it doesn't smell like the one at the salon, or it didn't like lather like it did at the salon. So the tampering is more like it could happen. You don't really have control over it, that kind of thing. But if you are shopping online, a lot of businesses like the bigger color line, I'll use Redken as an example, they have an Amazon shop now. So you like are directly buying from the company. So that like is an ease for clients as opposed to like having to buy it like in the store. So
Good
there's
to
a mix.
know. I heard like I was actually discussing a skincare product with a friend, and she said I won't buy from Amazon because I'm not sure what quality I'm receiving, even on the same brand. So,
yeah.
But that helps me to understand the narrative. Whereas I'm oftentimes more like, oh, my kid just said they were out of this and I need it now. So it's more of a like, I can't wait till I have time to go drive here, there, or everywhere. And one line
and
orders
park
are
and
easier.
walk and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like the convenience issue. I feel like in our world, like the beauty world is adapting to it. It's just really know your sources and where you're buying it from is what I would tell everybody to do.
Good to know.
And again, if you're close with your stylist, like most of us can send you a link to whatever. So DMs can be helpful. Like use us.
I love it. So what are some trends that you're seeing? We're entering, kind of winter 2024, 25, New Year 25. What's out and what's in, or what are you, I mean, I know there's room for everything, but.
There is. I mean, it's pretty standard that in our world, all of our blondes are wanting to go brunette for the fall, and then they want to be blonde again in the summer. Like everybody takes on a little depth, but that's because we live in Michigan, right? So we're not getting the same sun on our hair.
We have true seasons.
Yes. So I think it's kind of fun in Michigan because in seasons we really do have changes. My biggest change, longest appointments are going to be in the spring and in the fall. They're people looking for high impact. It's a new season we're going into and everybody wants to look different. But then you get into like the holiday season and people are like, all of my money is now being directed towards something else. So I just need to be able to maintain, like, it's not the time for me to do a big change. Like people aren't as invested in, I need to look good for the Christmas party. They're like, I need to be able to afford the Christmas party. So
I need to keep the credit card down as I try to pay off the presents and things like that.
Yes. So it is rapidly changing. I was with all the girls yesterday and everyone was showing a picture of like, I cannot believe this is showing up. And I don't know if anybody remembers Christina Aguilera, like white, black, and red stripes all over her hair. If you haven't seen it, someone's got to Google it. To each their own. To each their own. I think in general, we've been very blended and natural, and easy maintenance has been like a big goal for a lot of people, but now some people are missing the like boldness in the way color used to be sometimes. So I think it's kind of like a shift in that sense that we're anticipating coming. So
a reversion, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever it was will be the complete opposite of the trend last time. So if curtain bangs are a thing, the next thing is going to be is no bangs. And,
yeah.
Just like
need that
everybody
2 years to grow them out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
last question. I've heard that you can kind of sense economic trends based on how many people are scheduling, what types of services they prefer, whether they're going big and bold or, kind of understated and trying to be more economical. Do you notice that either seasonally or from year to year?
I feel like seasonally for sure. Like it happens so many times in a year, and I can even like note those things like, oh yeah, Christmas is coming, or oh yeah, school is starting, or whatever. Like we can see the shift, and even like people that pre-book their appointments with me, like you can see kind of either it's fluid or they need to put bigger gaps or whatever. So in some senses, we kind of see it coming. There is kind of in our industry, as we've watched, we've noticed that the 2 months that are probably the slower months of the year where people need to like buckle down are like October and January, because it's before and after the holidays, which I feel like takes in a lot of people's financial like concerns. So
Well,
typically,
and
I mean, like,
every kid has their school pictures. Oftentimes, like back to
yes,
school is where you do all your cleanup in the household, and you're kind of paying back from that new wardrobe too, or,
yes. And
re-outfitting the family.
you probably got all your kids' haircut the month before when you don't normally do that, but once a year, like we see those shifts. So we always call them our vacation months. So we're allowed to take vacations in October and January.
Well, hopefully you can fit a few more in than that. I know you do,
Yeah.
actually. Speaking of which, where can people find you if they want to continue to follow the trends and the conversation?
So my Instagram handle is trust by Jess underscore trust by Jess. I do a lot of blonde content, a lot of like care of your hair content, and I just really enjoy being silly with the girls at work. So there's some little entertainment in there for you. And then our salon is Gem Beauty, HJem. It is actually a Nordic word that means home. So everyone calls it, yeah. So we've been there for just over a year and a half now. We came from a massive salon and then kind of buckled down into a smaller boutique salon to get more intimate coaching with our staff. And it's a lot of like new professionals that are just, they're killing it. They're doing a really good job. So it's fun to be a part of building them up as a stylist and, just being mentor and support to them and even just encouraging them to be silly sometimes, it's not, doesn't need to be all serious, so.
I could not agree more. Thank you so much, Jessica, for the candid and frank conversation on something that is so personal, but also so important, at least to me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I think we should do this more, and hopefully it inspires our listeners to have that discussion with their stylist. I think you'd learn a lot.
Of course. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day.
Yes, you too.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Money Wisdom Podcast. If you found value in this episode, the best way you can support the podcast is to forward an episode to a friend or leave a review. Go to pearlplan.com and the podcast link to get all the resources and links mentioned.